How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I've got another review video. Today we're going to be reviewing the Halo XD3 Pro. This rod comes in right around $100, and there are a lot of rods around that price point, and I'm going to tell you why I think this is the best one. The rod I got, this is their 7'3" medium. It's rated for lures 1/8 to 3/4 ounces, which is ridiculous. That's a huge range, and I can verify. I've thrown baits, like I've thrown little like a 2.8 swim bait on a 1/8 ounce jig head, and it can definitely throw them. You have to have the right reel and the right line, but this rod can definitely handle really light lures. And I've thrown baits up to like half ounce jigs, and this rod does hold up. I wouldn't recommend it for throwing jigs like that. I think where this rod specializes is jerk baits for one, any kind of crankbaits, treble hooks, top water. But what I've found is just far and away my favorite way to fish is a weightless fluke. And you absolutely cannot beat this rod for throwing a weightless fluke. It is absolutely perfect. The 7'3" is pretty long. You would think for a jerkbait type rod where you want that rod to be shorter so you're not hitting the surface of the water when you're working that bait. But personally, I love the 7'3" because when you're throwing something really light like a fluke, that longer rod helps you get a lot more casting distance. There were a couple situations this year where really the only time I could get bit is when I was throwing that fluke and I was just bomb casting it, and generally would get hit on the initial fall or just after one or two twitches. So when you're setting the hook that day I was actually using mono, which I wouldn't recommend. I would recommend using fluoro, but even that has stretch. So when you're setting the hook, that longer rod helps you take up more line on the hook set and helps you hook those fish a lot better. So overall, that 7'3" length is just perfect for fishing the fluke. I caught quite a few jerkbait fish, especially smallmouth, and actually my PB smallmouth with this rod on a jerkbait, and it works really, really well. The tip is really interesting because on the Halo rods, it doesn't actually show you what the tip is, and if you don't know what I mean by the tip, I just mean how deep into the rod it'll bend. But I found this rod is more of a moderate fast. A rod with a fast action will only bend towards the tip, and as you get more towards the moderate end, the rod will bend a lot deeper, which is good for treble hooks where you don't want to pull those hooks out of the fish's mouth. And you'll see a lot of people like to use glass rods, generally more high-end rods, but those rods bend really, really deep into the rod, which makes them really good for fishing treble hooks. I can't afford glass, but if you're talking about a versatile rod, I use this rod for flukes, jerkbaits, lipless cranks, top water with treble hooks, things like that. And a lot of times I don't want a super bendy rod, because I also fish stuff like finesse jigs, smaller Texas rigs, stuff where I really have to set the hook on this rod. So having that faster tip helps. But when I hook a fish on treble hooks, as long as the hooks are sharp, I've had absolutely no trouble bringing those fish in. So a couple more things I really like about this rod. Real quick, the bait keeper, it's good. It's nothing crazy, but just the way this bait keeper allows you to put like a Texas rig or something, you can just put the gap of that hook right into there, so you don't have to unhook a Texas rig and put it in. So that's really good for being efficient on the water, especially when you're throwing something like that fluke, where if you're constantly taking the hook out and then exposing it repeatedly, it can really tear up the fluke. Don't have to worry about that with this rod, which is a great bonus. The handle on this rod is super, super comfortable. You guys can see it's there's cork and EVA. It's like a hybrid handle, and it is super, super comfortable. So that handle's really comfortable, and overall this rod is super light. It is absolutely crazy how light and sensitive this rod is. You guys may have already seen or if you haven't seen, make sure you check out my review of the Shimano SLX rod and reel. But I said in that review that the rod feels like a $100 rod. That's not the case with this rod. This rod feels way better than $100. And like if I'm buying any rod in that price range, this is gonna be the rod I'm gonna go to. And this rod comes in some really good models. It comes in I believe the 7.3 medium that I have right here, as a 7-foot heavy, 7-foot medium heavy, and then a 7.3 or 7.2 medium heavy. So it really has some really versatile rods. It's not like something you can have super technique specific, but there are certainly some really, really good models, and I'm a huge fan of this rod. Another thing that's strange about this rod, and I'll see if I can show it, I'm kind of in a confined space, but this rod actually has, I believe it's 12 plus 1 eyelets, 12 plus the tip, which is a lot. Most rods only have 7 to 8. I couldn't tell you what the purpose of that is. It definitely has like these micro guides. I don't necessarily know what the purpose of that is, but I don't have anything against it. And I found that this rod, it loads up really well when you're trying to make a long cast. It definitely takes a little bit extra time to string up just because there are so many eyelets, but I don't have any complaints about that. And the sensitivity on this rod is really, really good. For the most part, I wasn't fishing baits on the bottom with this. Like I said, most of the time with flukes and crankbaits and stuff. But from what I could tell, the sensitivity is really, really good. But there's enough backbone, so if I am fishing a lipless or something like that, where I'm ripping it through the grass, there's more than enough power in this rod to do that. Caught a few fish in the fall doing that, and also caught my personal best pike on this rod. It wasn't a big pike, it's only 28 inches, but nevertheless, this rod can handle big fish. This rod was, I believe, 7 or 8 out of my 10 biggest fish this year all came on this rod, and it handles them really, really well. So I am just a huge fan of this rod. Couldn't recommend it enough. It is just, if you're looking for a rod in the $100 to $150 price point, this is probably the best way to go in my opinion. Or even if you're looking for a little bit cheaper rod, like a budget option, even if you only want to spend 60 to 80 bucks, I think it's more than worth it to bump up to the $100 price point to get this rod. If you get it with the Tackle Warehouse Black Friday sale, I know it's a long ways away, but you can get a rod for 20% off, and I believe they have a Labor Day sale a lot of the time as well, which is 15% off. So you can get this rod close to that $80 to $90 price point, which is just incredible for what this rod is. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this review. Make sure you drop a like, drop a comment down below if you own any rods from Halo or this rod specifically, and what your thoughts are on it. Let us know if this review was helpful. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you want to see more reviews and unboxings and eventually fishing videos when we don't have a ton of snow outside. Hopefully within the next month or so, we'll have some open water, and once that happens, we won't be doing any more sit-down videos. It'll all be fishing videos. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. While you're at it, follow me on Instagram at rookie_angling. I'm trying to get 5,000 followers by the end of the year, so if you could help me achieve that goal, I would greatly appreciate it. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one.